Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our next episode of the Manufacturing Minute, where we aim to update you on the trends and hot topics shaping the world of manufacturing. I'm Megan Meador. I'm an audit and assurance partner with Brown Edwards. We are a top 100 regional firm with offices in Virginia, Tennessee, and West Virginia. We offer all things accounting and all things consulting, and visit our website at becpas.com for more information and to view the plethora of services that we offer. I'm currently serving in the role of the manufacturing and distribution industry leader, and I'm based out of our Bristol, Tennessee office. But I have clients all over Southwest Virginia, Eastern Tennessee, Kentucky, and Southern West Virginia. So, with all of that said about me, today I'm very excited to introduce our guest speaker, Nick Janda with the Specialty Tax Group. And today we are going to be talking about the very fun and exciting topic of Section 174. Hi, Nick. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Hi, Megan. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah,
Absolutely.
very exciting topic that a lot of people really love.
Really love. Just hopefully everybody's listening to this first thing in the morning versus late at night. So Nick, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your group and your specialties?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for the introduction, Megan. So I'm Nick Janda. I'm the R&D Tax Credit Director at Specialty Tax Group. I've been in public accounting for 10 years, and 8 of those I've been involved with R&D credits, and the past 3 or 4 now with this Section 174 capitalization component that we're going to talk about today. Specialty Tax Group, we are based in Alpharetta, Georgia, with folks all over the United States, and we provide R&D tax credit, cost segregation studies, and we also do a lot of local state incentives as well as renewable energy credits, among a couple other things. So our website is just specialtytaxgroup.com if you're interested in checking us out.
Well, let's dive right into the topic at hand, if that's all right, Nick.
Absolutely, let's do it.
Yeah. So, what are Section 174 R&D capitalization rules, and when did they begin?
Sure. So this is something that actually requires going back in time, and I'm also going to set the stage before we even do that. So there's 2 sorts of things that people sometimes I would want to make the distinction of. So there's the R&D tax credit that is governed under Internal Revenue Code Section 41. That is an optional tax incentive that a company that performs R&D can or cannot take. It's again, just a tax credit, reduces your tax liability dollar for dollar. We've got another podcast episode about that if you want to learn more.
Absolutely.
That's different. What we're here to talk about today is Section 174 R&D capitalization. So that's, again, governed by Internal Revenue Code Section 174. And this is a mandatory tax compliance item that any company doing R&D had to comply with. So it's sort of related, but it's 2 totally different things. So I don't want to conflate the 2 necessarily. And now, to set a little bit of history, we actually have to go back in time all the way to 2017. And the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act gets passed. Everyone's very happy. There's corporate tax cuts. There's a lot of other very business favorable tax legislation that is a part of that package. And it's great. To pay for it and actually get it passed, the tax revenue had to come from somewhere. We had to balance the budget during the scoring process in some way. So one of the ideas was say, okay, well, here, let's look at this. So any company that does R&D, as it's defined in Code Section 174, typically just expenses those costs on their tax return every year. Now, instead of that, they have to capitalize those for tax purposes and amortize them over 5 years for anything that's done in the United States, and then over 15 years for any R&D that is done overseas. And that's going to increase, we'll make up some of the lost tax revenue that way. But we'll make it trigger starting with tax year 2022. So, 2017, we've got plenty of time to fix this. We'll deal with it later. That's future Congress's problem. But now we can get our current package passed. So it passed, and time marched on, and people started sweating, and we're like, well, surely it'll get fixed. There's bipartisan support for it to get fixed. It never got fixed.
Never got fixed.
Terrible tax policy. Does not incentivize R&D in any way. So many companies that do R&D and had invested heavily in it, all of a sudden were faced with massive tax bills, maybe tax bills for the first time that they just sometimes couldn't pay. Companies went under, there were layoffs, it just stagnated a lot of the R&D market because all of a sudden I'm getting 100% of these costs written off. I'm not even thinking about it. I'm expensing all of my salaries. I don't even track them on R&D or not. And now all of a sudden I'm only getting to expense 20% of that, technically only 10% in the first year because there was a mid-year convention. So it was technically 6 years and 16 years to fully amortize all of this stuff. And it was just, it was awful. And for 3 years, uh, every so often a bill would be floated that would fix this. But of course, it's riddled with other things and they just never got passed. And so time went on, and it just hadn't been fixed. A bright spot is that it is fixed now. The one big beautiful bill that was passed on the 4th of July, 2025 this year does restore that full expensing for R&D, starting with tax year 2025 and onwards, and also provides relief for all those unamortized costs that have been accumulating and stacking. There is a path forward now to recapture those. So the fix is here, which is great. It's just been a very long couple of years for taxpayers in the R&D space.
Yeah, so, I don't wanna live in the past, but talk to me a little bit about those few years and how businesses were responding to the tax law during that period.
Yeah, so there was a lot of really not fun conversations, of course. I mean, this is people's livelihoods and all of a sudden, maybe they just how are we going to pay this? It doesn't make any sense. Why is this the law? And it's just really unfortunate. So a
No
lot of
incentive to grow, no incentive to think forward, no incentive to grow, yeah.
no, a lot of very emotionally charged conversations, and that makes total sense. It was awful, and it hurt a lot of people really badly.
So to transform into a little bit of the preview that you gave us a few minutes ago, so now we have the one big beautiful bill, which, by the way, a tax partner in my office called it OB3.
Yeah, I've
And
heard that.
that I was like, "What in the world?" And then it dawned on me, I was like going to Star Wars or something. But anyway, so now we're in this one big beautiful bill world, and, what changes happened that, is now making R&D more attractive again?
Yeah. So it is fixed again for tax year 2025 onwards. You can restore it restores full R&D expensing. So there's no more capitalization or the amortization. One thing to note, the foreign component that is still in play. OBA didn't address that. It's just going to be domestic expenses that can be fully expensed again. So that kind of tracks with the administration's like bring it back to America sort of approach. And it's back to business as usual before these rules kicked in. So that's great. And then there's a couple options for all your 2022, 2023, 2024 unamortized costs to recapture those. So the first option, this is available to all taxpayers, is you can just recapture all of that in tax year 2025, 100%. Or if you want to, you can split it 50-50, 2025, 2026, and then just go on from there. If you are considered a small business under OBA or OB3, accountants love an acronym. Uh, you can actually go back and apply these rules retroactively. And so to define a small business, it's somebody or a taxpayer who has uh, average gross receipts for the prior 3 years of less than $31 million. So that would be 2024, 2023, 2022. I add all my gross receipts together, average them. If it's under 31 million, I'm a small business and I can apply these rules retroactively, which means that I can amend those tax returns for 22, 23, 24, um, and pretend like Section 174 never existed, essentially.
Okay. So, not to revisit some of the topics that we talked about in our previous podcast together, but talk to us a little bit about like R&D and companies capturing those costs correctly in order to provide correct information to their tax preparers for filing.
Yeah, so it does almost punish people for complying a little bit with those rules if we're just going to pretend that they never really existed. But yeah, so we can take another look at R&D, especially a lot of people didn't claim R&D credits, for example, or vastly like maybe they missed out on because they weren't doing as much R&D those years, or maybe they were like I wasn't 100%. I didn't understand the distinction between the credit and 174, so I don't know that I classified everything correctly. I want to revisit this. It does provide an option and an opportunity to claim R&D credits on these amended returns as well, or to adjust credits that had been claimed prior, but maybe you want to revisit, maybe it was underclaimed or overclaimed and you just want to correct it, you can. So that's a great benefit as well. Only thing to mention with amended tax returns for the R&D credit, if there's a refund involved, it does require a little bit of extra documentation to be submitted with the tax return. And
Okay.
that's just something to keep in mind as well as part of that. But there are definitely opportunities there to kind of revisit everything and see where there's some savings opportunities that weren't available to us while the Section 174 rules were in place.
And remind me, how many years are we able to go back and amend?
That'll be back to 2022 as the first tax year, or technically tax years starting after December 31st, 2021. Not everyone's a calendar year, of course, but
Okay.
yeah. So tax year 2022, 3 and 4. And one thing I do want to mention as well is that if you are a small business and you want to evaluate going back and amending these returns, you have to amend a return for each year that you capitalized R&D. So you can't pick and choose which ones from that 3-year period you could amend. If you capitalized R&D in all those years, you would have to amend all of those years it's all or none, basically.
No, that's good to know, but sometimes amending is definitely worth it, right? And I know that it's a lot of work sometimes to do that, but the reward is greater sometimes than that work. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great point too, because there are, of course, with all tax things, a lot of different potential paths you can take in terms of amending. Some taxpayers, especially C corps, are going to they just we're gung ho. We're going to amend. Let's do it right now. A couple considerations for the amendment process, especially for say like a flow through entity like an S corp or a partnership, is that all of those other return, like the shareholder and partner returns, of course, need to be amended as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, even processing time. Some taxpayers have decided that actually I might see my refund faster if I just file my 25 return on time, like without extension in March or April, because the IRS's processing times can sometimes be not the fastest. And as of this recording on October 8th, they are currently shut down. All operations are not happening at all. Taxpayer services, processing, auditing, all of it shut down. So processing time is also just something to keep in mind. It might even be faster to get a refund. Again, just accelerating when you usually file your tax return. So there's lots of different considerations to make. And again, it's going to come down to the individual taxpayer's facts and circumstances.
Absolutely. I was talking to a client just the other day about some of these possibilities, and I said, I'm not sure, but it's something that we should discuss a little further. And I don't know how you feel about this. And he said, are you kidding me? I would love to be able to go to my boss's boss's boss, and be able to tell them, because they are an LLC, to be able to tell them that I might have some tax savings for them this year. That's not and get permission to kind of explore that further. That's not a hard conversation to have at all. Most people are definitely willing to try to figure out if it's going to save them real dollars. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
what trends do you anticipate seeing in the near future as a result of the changes that came out of the one big beautiful bill?
I anticipate a lot more R&D and especially a lot more R&D onshore in the United States. I think people are going to be evaluating the cost and benefit of outsourcing that overseas to keeping it here in the United States. I talked with a client the other day who was already looking at shifting some AI specialties and expertise to a team local to us in Alpharetta that they had done it used in Pakistan earlier, I think. So already we're seeing it happening, and so again, it's a reversal of some pretty not so great tax policy, and I think we're going to see another kind of resurgence and age of R&D here in the U.S.
No, and I love this discussion because it just continues to solidify the fact that these credits are out there, these opportunities are out there. And so, you know, proactive communication with your tax advisor is key in some of these things. And I think that companies are now able to stomach a little bit more to take the risk to spend that R&D money, right? That they were kind of hesitant to before. And it's very exciting to see some of that stuff happening, in our own back doors. We want all that stuff to happen to build our own local economies and communities. And so it's all really, really good stuff. Again, this is out there for companies to use. And so the more education that we can provide and the more expertise that we can offer to our clients to be able to take advantage of these credits, it's really key.
Yeah, absolutely, and it can get really nuanced. So it's hard to do on your own without expert guidance to kind of help guide through the pitfalls and make sure we're looking at all the different paths and alternatives and options and just find the best path forward for each taxpayer.
Appreciate your time today, Nick. Some of these things can be mundane in nature, but they're very exciting when you think about the growth opportunities that can happen, the jobs that can be created, and the growth that can help, that can happen in our own local areas out of this type of stuff. So we really appreciate your time and expertise today.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me. Always glad to help spread some education and talk about it. And again, it's great news. It's been a dark couple of years, so it's very exciting going forward. We're having we're looking forward to it. So
That's why it's called One Big and Beautiful, right? So
that's
it's all
yeah,
good stuff. Yeah. Well, thanks, Nick. Appreciate your time today.
of course. Thanks, Megan.